I told y'all the flood is coming, right? Many of you really think, and I don't know who all is somehow, in a sense, thinking that Nintendo is immune from these market forces, the market forces that have plagued PlayStation and Xbox in these live service games, and also a barrage of third party developers. Look at this Insider Gaming Tom Henderson exclusive. It says Nintendo Switch 2 will have a three-phase launch plan for its games. Now, this is based on some of the work that's being done here. So with Nintendo Switch 2 just 1 week from its official full reveal, this year's annual GDC was buzzing with talk around the future of the console. One such discussion was around the Nintendo Switch 2 launch date, which according to people that I spoke to at the event falls in June. But that's not all. So there's a little bit of hearsay here. So I'd say take with a little grain of salt, I guess. But these are conversations with developers at GDC about what's going down. But that's not all. According to various sources, the Nintendo Switch 2 will launch its games in a three-phase strategy, starting with primarily first-party games on launch. Now, compared to the launch of PlayStation and Xbox, where we saw third-party, second-party, whatever games show up, like in the case of PlayStation 5, there was Godfall immediately, and it was because it was exclusive to Epic Games and PlayStation and such. We got to see that the developers recently have left the business. And if you look at maybe even Xbox Series X, I don't even remember what was launched then. I didn't have a Series S or X until I think about a year later or so. And then they said, according to the sources, the second stage will arrive in October, November for third-party studios, most of which are expecting the dev kits for the Switch 2 to be sent in June. Nintendo has calculatedly and strategically created an advantage for itself by sending dev kits by June of this year for whoever wants to port their games there. Now, this is where we need to talk about the technical side of game development. I'm almost certain that a lot of developers would have already taken the initiative to go ahead and structure hardware that can emulate what the Nintendo Switch 2 would be able to do, or at least give, say, an emulation of the first Switch a little bit more juice. This is how the Turk was able to slap Nib around with his Black Myth Wukong claims, because you can actually, take that liberty and say, okay, if this particular hardware piece has, say, this memory capability, I can go ahead and simulate what it could look like for a game of such that requires ABCDE to run on it. So a lot of these developers are sitting pretty. The moment that Switch 2 shows up as a dev kit, they're going to be ready to go. So what we can do is we can calculate from October to November to see how fast a third-party game launches on the Nintendo Switch 2, and hopefully we can figure that out. I can remember, and God willing, nothing goes crazy. We can come back and revisit it, as quickly as we can. So it says, finally, it was said that the third phase of games will be in the holiday period. In addition to the talk of these three-phase launch plan, Insider Gaming has also learned that select media and creators will be attending Nintendo Switch 2 hands-on next week, where they'll get hands-on with the console and some of its launch games for a few hours. The Nintendo Switch 2 is scheduled to be fully revealed on April 2nd. The rumor is saying that there's a May launch date, so we expect more in-depth hardware coverage and perhaps some of its launch games too. A launch price, along with the official release date, is also expected to be announced during the event. According to various insiders, Nintendo is planning a Nintendo Direct later this week, but its contents are currently unknown. So, with this particular notion in mind, I've said already that Nintendo has to do something differently. Yes, it has, affordable games in terms of its production and development process. Yes, it has games that people are seeking to buy, but if they decide they're going to add more games in terms of welcoming third party into their ranks, people are going to look for value regardless. They're going to say, man, I'm a Nintendo Switch gamer. Perhaps I want to be doing more of my gaming here. If there are more live service games that show up on the Nintendo Switch, this is also going to have to tilt their ecosystem in one way or the other. Ladies and gentlemen, it's inevitable. Nintendo Switch is also going to now have to show if it can withstand what PlayStation and Xbox has been dealing with in the last few years. I think it's going to be a very interesting time with the Switch 2. And even they know it, even with their, so-called launch in terms of, staggering when third-party games are, going to be coming in and giving development kits somewhat late. I know, from what we know, PlayStation and Xbox development kits usually go out early to developers to be able to get things running in terms of their game developments, because those two parties, they actually do depend on third-party games for a lot of their business. Nintendo now is about to see how third-party games can mix in a different category. Like, I'm talking, if that thing has a PlayStation 4 power or maybe even close, better than anything the Switch can do, it's a field day for third-party devs. They are going to bombard that particular ecosystem. It's not even funny. But anyways, we need to keep an eye out as to how this is going to all go down, because, man, I can tell you that this is some really exciting stuff at the end of the day. Thanks so much for watching the video. I really appreciate you guys' time and audience. Let me hear your thoughts about all of this, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.